10 facts that show why Caligula was Rome's craziest emperor. Each Roman ruler has a couple of insane stories added to his repertoire, however none of them contrast with the stories of Caligula. He's the one Roman head antiquarians are genuinely certain was authentically insane. 6 ancient Romans expounded on Caligula's life, and all of them concurred that he was totally crazy. They left anecdotes about him that are absurd to the point that a few group currently insist that these occasions couldn't in any way, shape or form have occurred. In any case, that is not on the grounds that we have any proof against them. Caligula's life was simply too insane to even think about being accepted. 10. He invited his horse to drink wine at his dinner table. Caligula presumably never made his pony a delegate, however that doesn't mean he didn't deal with the creature like a person. According to numerous Roman sources, Caligula treated his number one power, Incitatus, better than most people. This horse had his own home. It was difficult, wasn't only an overhauled stable, all things considered. Caligula gave his pony his own numerous room house, total with furniture and a group of slaves who were requested to follow the pony's each command. At dinner time, Caligula would invite his pony to dine with him. The pony would be brought to the dinner table, where the head and his pony would be served wine in brilliant chalices and would share a toast to the pony's acceptable health. 1. He even sent his officers out to ensure that the creature got some harmony and calm. Allegedly, after Caligula saw that the groups cheering at the games were bothering his pony, he sent his officers to constrain everybody in participation to keep silent, on pain of death, until the pony got some rest. 9. He tried to replace the head on the statue of Zeus with his own. Caligula wasn't fulfilled to simply be a sovereign. He needed to be a divine being, and he set up his own faction to ensure it happened. The sovereign of Rome had sanctuaries built where individuals could venerate him. Inside, there were life-size resolutions of him made of unadulterated gold that individuals of Rome were urged to bow previously and love. What's more, he didn't stop there. Caligula had plans to cleave off the top of the sculpture of Zeus at Olympia, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and supplant its anything but his very own similarity head. He even employed his own group of clerics with their own extreme ceremonies. To show dedication to Caligula, a forfeited bull wouldn't be sufficient. His admirers were required to forfeit flamingos and peacocks in his honor. His fixation on declaring himself to be a divine being almost caused a revolt. At a certain point, disappointed that the Jews weren't worshipping him enough, Caligula requested Petronius, the legislative leader of Syria, to construct a gigantic sculpture of him inside the temple in Jerusalem. 2. The Jews were prepared to uproar, and it most likely would have transformed into an all-out defiance if Petronius hadn't worked Caligula out of it. In the end, however, Caligula had Petronius' head hacked off as discipline for making Caligula alter his perspective. 8. He ordered his army to attack the English Channel. Rumors from far and wide suggest that Caligula once pronounced conflict on Neptune, the lord of the ocean, and requested his men to wound the English Channel. There's some motivation to think that the story's somewhat overstated. In any case, doubtlessly that Caligula sent a military to the English Channel, and surprisingly the soberest renditions of the story don't paint Caligula in the best light. He actually sent his military into the ocean. The adaptation acknowledged by most antiquarians is that Caligula was leading a failing effort against the Britons and his men were nearly revolt since he'd cut their compensation. In this way, to make it dependent upon them, he drove his whole armed force, including the cannons, to the English Channel and disclosed to them that they could fill their protective caps with however many shells as they wanted. In lieu of pay, his men were to take ruins from the sea as their prize for their diligent effort. Anything they could fit in a cap was theirs for the taking, he guaranteed them. Go your way cheerful. Caligula told his men as they scooped shells and shakes out of the sea. Turn out well for you rich. 7. He ordered a mass execution because he thought people were praying against him. When Caligula took the seat, he invited a portion of the political adversaries of Tiberius, the last head, to return to Rome. Caligula even invited one to plunk down with him actually and afterward asked how the man had invested his energy in exile. I continually asked, too, the divine beings for what has happened. The man advised him, that Tiberius may bite the dust and you become emperor. 4. He was trying to compliment Caligula, yet it didn't work out that way. Instead, the man coincidentally got a couple thousand individuals killed. What Caligula got from the discussion was that this man had appealed to the divine beings for Tiberius' passing, and obviously, his petitions had been replied. That implied there was a very decent possibility that individuals banished by Caligula were praying against him, too. After talking to the man, Caligula delivered a request to kill each individual he'd at any point ousted for trying to turn the divine beings against him. What's more, he made it a drawn-out arrangement. From that point on, when Caligula made an adversary, he had the individual's dead body strutted before him before he dozed simple. 6. He built massive floating orgy palaces. Caligula may have been insane, yet he definitely realized how to party. After he came to control, Caligula blew each penny he had on building 2 huge, floating joy royal residences so he could toss bashes inside. Placed on Lake Nemi, these immense freight boats had fronts shrouded in gems and floors cleared with glass mosaics. The vessels were loaded up with monstrous sculptures and brilliant cups. Indeed, even the sails were made of purple silk, a material so uncommon at the time that it was solely used to make the ruler's clothes. 5. Caligula facilitated insane bashes on the Lake Nemi boats, and his #1 visitors were his own sisters. Yet, he didn't stop at incest. Caligula requested his aristocrats to bring their spouses when they visited. He made them line up before him, inspected their bodies, and picked his top choice to bring into his chamber. Then, at that point he returned out, plunked down with her better half, and caused the man to endure an itemized survey of how his significant other was sleeping. 5. He rode a horse across a gulf just to prove a fortune teller wrong. Caligula's most prominent accomplishment was building a 5-kilometer-long, 3 miles, floating scaffold across the Gulf of Baiae. At that point, a scaffold like that was totally unbelievable, and he did completely out of spite. Before he became sovereign, a soothsayer named Thrasyllus had anticipated that Caligula had not any more shot at becoming head than of riding a pony across the Gulf of Baiae. Caligula assembled the extension just to focus on it that the celestial prophet had been wrong. 6. Caligula got each boat he could find to line up across the inlet. Then, at that point he had slaves lay earth on top of the boats to make an immense scaffold. Caligula jumped on his pony and rode to and fro across the scaffold for 2 days in a row so everybody knew the seer had been off base. 4. He had an audience devoured alive because he was bored during intermission at the rounds of ancient Rome. Criminals would be executed for the entertainment of the group. After they had been lined up, their throats were cut while the crowd either remunerated their demises with light praise or rearranged out to get refreshments. That wasn't Caligula's thought, however he was a major fan. Caligula enjoyed the games such a lot of that he made it illicit to plan a legal dispute or a memorial service while the games were in meeting, just to ensure no one missed them. Once, when there were no criminals to be executed during intermission, he assumed control over issue. He requested his gatekeepers to toss an arbitrary segment of the crowd into the ring. Then, at that point he released the creatures so he could watch these individuals get eaten up alive. 7. 3. He wouldn't let anyone mention goats around him as a young fellow. Caligula disapproved a body hair, and he was exceptionally touchy about it. Hair developed wherever on his body aside from the highest point of his head, where he had a bare spot. He ensured, however, that nobody pulled off making fun of him. Almost certainly, he prevented specialists from drawing his uncovered spot as it appears in composed portrayals of him, however once in a while in ancient workmanship. To manage the hairiness, he made it a wrongdoing for anybody to give the signal, goat, in his presence. 8. As ruler, he had the ability to do quite well anything he needed as he much of the time reminded everybody around him. He didn't prevent at banning individuals from talking about goats. Truth be told, he used his forces in manners just longed for in socially restless internet memes. When he got tired of having to converse with individuals constantly, Caligula made it illicit to welcome him twice. Any individual who needed to shake his hand could do it one time, however that was all you got. From that point onward, you needed to let him be, or there will be consequences. 2. He forced a man to drink with him, after the death of that man's son, for a person must be beautiful for a while. He saw a good-looking man with a good hairstyle and a good sense of fashion, and he was so envious that he was the right person to run Zologiaeum. It was the man's father who did everything he could to save his son's life. Begged Caligula to save his son, but achieved the opposite effect. In response, Caligula, the son of a builder. But in turn, Caligula, he asked his father to eat and drink with the emperor immediately after his son's death. He was forced to toast the emperor with healthy food on the table, and accept any gift Caligula gave him, all the while looking back at the man who had just killed his son. According to Senator Seneca, The father had to sit and smile, knowing that his second son would die if he showed even the slightest hint of sadness. One he threatened to turn into a god. It's easy to think that Caligula had a very bad sense of humor, or what might be on the candlestick. There are, however, many reasons to believe that the emperor was indeed mentally ill. It was rumored that Caligula had a lot of experience in life. Apparently, he rarely slept more than 3 hours at a time, as the visuals were at their worst at night. For example, once he sat up all night to complain about the ocean talking to him. There are also reports that he can speak openly to the god Jupiter, but not as pious or religious. To him, a fight with an invisible god, as well as a type of heated conversation with a creature that no one else could zerozumik. The philosopher Seneca said he saw Caligula who threatened Jupiter. She was watching the ballet when thunder rumbled on the horizon. Angry at the gods for taking his show, Caligula, who eventually became an outsider, started yelling at Jupiter, and he was in danger of defeating the god of the dead. Some of the Roman emperors were made to appear mad by their enemies, and what it is to be mad with power. But Tiberius could be crazy, inside or out.